This is the Trews. I'm Russell Brand. I'm here with George Monbiot. Am I saying your name right? Monbiot. Don't say that last bit. George Monbiot. Yeah, that's more glamorous, more hip hop. I'm here with George Monbiot. I'm here with George Monbiot doing the Trews. We're talking about a lot of things. We're most importantly, or at least primarily, the TTIP. What is the TTIP, please?
The Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. And if it sounds completely incomprehensible and impenetrable, that's because it's meant to. All the language surrounding this thing is like opaque, so you can't work out what they're talking about.
Yeah, I don't even like the name of it. No. Transatlantic trade, I've forgotten it.
It's sold to us as a trade treaty. You have nothing to worry your little heads about. The EU and the US are going to bring down trade barriers so we'll all be richer. That's
brilliant. That sounds good. I love those.
There's almost no trade barriers between us, between the EU and the US. What they are actually doing is looking at the regulations, the safeguards, the things which protect our food quality, the natural world, all the things which keep us safe from corporate predators, basically. They're going to level those down to a common set so that we have exactly the same set of regulations as they have in the US, and they have exactly the same as we have in the EU. That's not going to be leveled up. They're going to bring them down to
They're not going to impose further regulation on the United States. So in a way, it's to create more room for rapacious capitalism. One of the things I've noticed in recent years is that there's too much regulation on the financial industry. There's too much controls on transnational corporations. These poor, impeded organisations can scarcely get their work done without some bit of bureaucracy tripping them up.
That there has been a full spectrum assault on regulation. They call it red tape. You open up any corporate newspaper, and it's red tape is strangling us, red tape is killing us,
bloody red tape.
All this shit.
And these red tape.
And what they're talking about are the essential safeguards which basically make the difference between civilization and everyone throttling each other.
These essential safeguards between civilization and everyone throttling each other. Yes, I've got to go. I think we've got a bit of footage here, haven't we, of David Cameron. He's in charge of you.
While we're on the other side of the world and we're at something called the G20, my focus is very clear, and that is delivering the long-term economic plan that's helping to turn Britain round.
They polish him 3 times a day.
They keep him nice and buff. Yeah, they've got to get that initial layer off, that sort of mahogany layer, down to a more pristine.
They do a good job.
He's always pristine and sparkling when he's up there, isn't he?
That's helping to get our people back to work, that's about securing prosperity for every family in Britain. That is my focus, and that's been my focus here for the last 48 hours.
Well, this feels already like, before we even got into this speech, like the sort of dead rhetoric that we've been talking about, George. That when he's saying prosperity for every family in Britain, how can politics of the type that David Cameron is espousing ever address the kind of problems that an ordinary family in Britain or in America or Australia? How can this kind of politics address it, particularly with bloody things like the TTIP?
The whole basis of the politics is the transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich, the concentration of wealth by the rich, but also the transfer of power, basically, from us to the corporations and to the billionaires. I mean, that is the basic thrust of it. Incidentally, with a few sort of caveats, it was a basic thrust of New Labour as well. Ever since Thatcher, that has been the direction that governments have taken in this country. But this lot are taking it much further.
They're much worse, are they?
No, they really are. And they're and Cameron's very good. He presents this smooth very smooth.
Too smooth.
Polished.
And I think we've made some important steps forward that really help with that long-term economic plan and help with the growth and the jobs that people want in Britain.
You look at this TTIP thing, right? This transatlantic thing. And it's not just that they're stripping away all these regulations which protect us. They are setting up something called investor-state dispute settlement, which is a wholly separate judicial system purely for the use of corporations.
They're going to have their own courts and judicial system.
Except that these courts are composed of just 3 corporate lawyers who work for the same corporations often.
They'll be helpful.
Meeting in secret without any third-party standing. In other words, you and I cannot go to the court and say, these proceedings will affect us in such a way, so we should have legal standing in this court. No judicial review, no appeal, no rights of appeal.
I don't know why you're worried about this. It's just three guys who work for corporations meeting in secret with zero accountability and no recourse for ordinary people. What is the problem with that? We'll be fine.
But already, there's been similar things done in other trade treaties. The same investor-state dispute settlement, I'm getting ahead of myself here, has been inserted into other trade treaties, right? And in those cases, you've got the government of Ecuador was sued for $2.3 billion by a US oil company.
Why?
Because the US oil company had not stuck to the terms of its contract, had not abided by Ecuadorian law, so they said, we're going to close your concession down, and they got sued.
Oh my God! Because the company said, like, so what these kind of trade agreements amount to, George, is that no nation state can impose any regulation on a corporation that prevents its ability to make money. Is that what it is?
It's a direct assault on democracy. It's a direct assault on democracy, a full spectrum assault, because there is nothing that they cannot sue a government for through these kangaroo courts. I mean, they're a complete farce.
A kangaroo would make it more fair, because the kangaroo might knock over one of the lawyers and he might hit his head and go, hold on, what, I've wasted my life, I'm a human being, look at this kangaroo, how it harbours its young in its pouch, what have I become? And then the other two lawyers would go, hold on a minute, we're meant to be meeting in secret, I'm going to tell the world. He might burst out of there.
I think I'm going to have to find a new metaphor.
We're very focused on the trade deals that can add to British growth, to British jobs, and in particular we've just had a successful meeting between the countries of the European Union on the one hand and the United States on the other to put rocket boosters under the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, the TTIP, which we think can add some 10 billion pounds to our side of the equation and can result in real jobs.
They're suing Uruguay and Australia at the moment for plain packaging of cigarettes. Philip Morris, a cigarette company, is saying you are infringing
our selling fags.
Copyright. Exactly.
Oh my God.
They're suing the government of El Salvador for 300 million, which is half its national budget.
We'll have half your budget.
For saying this gold mine cannot be dug because it will poison our water supply. Ahead. And they're saying, well, that's our future anticipated profits. You're taking away by not giving us permission.
You are literally taking food from our mouths. All right, you may have some poison in your water.
It's good that the trade facilitation agreement, so long stuck in the process, is now going to go ahead. That was a breakthrough at the G20.
What do we do in order to confront this piece of legislation that is obviously designed to prevent ordinary people having any power or recourse over corporations, so that corporations can run roughshod in the pursuit of profit, whether that means poisoning water, capsizing a country's economy, selling cigarettes, which I think they knew were dangerous long before they admitted it to us. What can we, ordinary people, do? How do we oppose TTIP?
Right. Well, the great thing is now a huge movement deployed against it. There's like 1.5 million people have signed petitions. 150,000 people sent written responses to a European Commission consultation on it, and it's just unbelievable.
So people really don't want this TTIP.
Right. I mean, we're always being told, oh, people can't engage with complex issues. They're too stupid.
That's too complex. I'm stupid.
Right. 150,000 people sent written submissions.
Did it do anything?
Yes, they're being forced out into the open. I mean, all this was basically going on way below the public radar. We weren't hearing a thing about it. It's now been dragged into the daylight. The focus is on them, the spotlight is on them, and suddenly it's like it's shrivelling up in exposure to light.
They can't face the light of truth.
The German government's coming out against it, French government's coming out against it. Our government they are lying again and again and again about it. Because
Why do they do this?
And Cameron said at this same summit, he said, we're going to put rocket boosters under TTIP.
We've got to get rocket boosters under poor TTIP. This is a lovely trade treaty. It's not been given a chance.
And I think it's important we start taking on the opponents of this deal and exposing some of the arguments against. This is good for Britain, good for jobs, good for growth, good for British families.
George, this TTIP thing, it seems like, if David Cameron, as you said, is putting rocket boosters under, it seems impossible for us ordinary people to countenance or confront such a pressure. Is there anything we can do? Is there any way it could be stopped?
Well, look, about a year ago, I wrote my first article on it, and I thought this is one of those issues that is just going to, no one is going to pick this up because it's so boring. It sounds so boring. It's all the language of it, everything. And I thought, right, I'm going to write this for one reason, so that in a few years' time I can turn to my children and say, I didn't do nothing. I wrote an article. It might have been completely useless, but I did what I could do within my very limited...
I wrote it in crayon, in the shed, on the wall, and I showed no one.
That's right. And it went viral.
Wow.
It went berserk. And it's just, and the movement has built and built. There have been some fantastic campaigners coming. I'm now convinced we're going to win this. And the thing is, we won it before. They tried to do this before, about 15, 16 years ago, with something called the Multilateral Agreement on Investment.
This is just a multilateral agreement in all directions on investment. What could go wrong with that? Right.
And they're going to keep coming back. They're going to keep trying it. But we beat them before. And, and we were less effective then. We were smaller. We didn't have social media. We didn't have the social media. We didn't have that ability to build up in the same way that we do now. I don't think they stand a chance.
Wicked.
But we've got to make sure of that.
What campaign particularly, what website should people look at to learn more about TTIP?
Well, I'll go to 38 Degrees. I'll go to that Corporate Europe Observatory. They've been fantastic on this. And
why don't they make that sound more boring?
Yeah, well,
hello, welcome to the Corporate Europe Observatory.
And the World Development Movement.
Right, okay, thanks.
World Development Movement also. But there's a big coalition of people now doing fantastic work on this.
So we'll support all of those things. We'll learn about them together. Watch out for more George Monbiot with his own Trews show.
Nose is a tool that is abused to fool you and to leave you scared and confused. Trews is like the nose. If the nose was true, I want some Trews. Let's have some Trews.